Alihan's deep voice was still rough with sleep as he roused groggily. What happened? Zeynep was out of words to explain. Then, thankfully, she was spared further floundering by a metallic clang as the auditorium's doors were finally thrown open from the outside. It was the guard. He asked, "How both got locked in the auditorium?" Alihan clenched his jaw and said, "Few students locked us here, but I will find them anyway." With that, he walked out of the auditorium, handling his jacket to his arm. Zeynep slipped quietly through the front door, hoping to avoid drawing any attention. But her mother's anxious voice rang out from the living room. "Zeynep, KZM, is that you? Where were you all night?" Jemre hurried over, eyes wide with worry. "I was sick with fear." Zeynep forced a reassuring smile, not wanting to alarm her further. "I'm all right, Mama. Please, don't worry." But Jemre pulled her into a fierce embrace, squeezing her tightly. "Don't ever scare me like that again, my dear. I thought something dreadful had happened." Putting herself gently, Zeynep said, "My professor gave me some responsibility to set up arrangements for an event at the university. But some students played a prank and locked me inside overnight." Jemre's brow furrowed with a mixture of confusion and outrage. "What? How could they do such a thing? This won't be tolerated. They must be punished severely." Now, Zeynep reached out to calm her mother with a placating hand on her arm. "My professor said he would get to the bottom of who was responsible. There's no need to make a bigger issue of it." Just then Hakan came and said, Well, if it isn't the high-flying Zeynep. Started spending nights away from home already, have we?" Zeynep got tensed and replied, "Not now, Abby. It wasn't like that at all." "Oh, I know exactly what kind of girl you're becoming," Hakan sneered, taking a menacing step closer. "Flying too high, thinking you're too good for the rest of us. You'll come crashing down eventually." Zeynep got angry and said, "Says the worthless drunken gambler who does nothing but leech off Mama." Hakan raised his hand as if to strike her. "That's enough." Jemre's shouts sliced through the tension like a whip crack. "Both of you, hush this instant." Zeynep and Hakan froze, glaring daggers at each other until their mother forcefully inserted herself between them. "I won't have this bickering and disrespect under my roof," Jemre scolded, mustard eyes flashing. "Zeynep has done nothing wrong, and you, Hakan, should be ashamed of yourself for your accusations." Frustrated, Hakan could only sneer at his sister once more before leaving. Zeynep watched him go. Her mother, while placing a gentle hand on her cheek, said, "Pay him no mind, KZM. I'm grateful you're home safe." Alihan stood before the mirror, deft fingers working and knotting his tie. He stared at his reflection, hardly recognizing the man looking back at him. He murmured, "She trusted me so much." Last night's events played over and over in his mind's eye. The way Zeynep had thrown herself wholeheartedly into decorating the auditorium, the way she rested her head on his shoulder. Alihan's jaw ticked as he met his own gaze in the mirror. He continued to murmur, "What kind of a man I allowed myself to become, ruled by ego and anger rather than self-restraint and dignity. How dedicatedly she decorated the whole auditorium, and I fooled her about the event. There's no event at all for what she worked throughout the day and night." Alihan closed his eyes, jaw clenching as the memory of pulling Zeynep into his embrace played out. The way she had instinctively trusted him enough to let her guard down, resting her head against his shoulder as she succumbed to sleep. Then Alihan said, "Did I go wrong with her?" Alihan opened his eyes, his reflection now looking as haunted as the emotions warring within him. Hakan sat on the worn-out sofa, his head in his hands, contemplating the mess he had found himself in. His mind raced with frantic thoughts, searching for a way to get the money he owed. The fear of the looming deadline made his heart pound. Suddenly, the front door burst open, and a group of men walked in with an air of menace about them. Hakan recognized them immediately as the enforcers sent by the man he owed money to. "Hakan, my boy," one of them sneered, his voice dripping with false camaraderie. "So, are you working to get the money?" Before Hakan could respond, his mother, Jemre, appeared from the kitchen, her face etched with worry. "What money?" she asked, her eyes darting between Hakan and the intruders. It's nothing, Mom," Hakan stammered, trying to sound casual. "You go, these are my friends." Jemre's eyes narrowed as she saw through his lie. "You again lost money in gambling, didn't you?" she accused, her voice rising with frustration. Hakan turned to the men, a forced smile on his face. "You go, I will arrange the money," he said, trying to dismiss them. The men exchanged glances but left without another word. As the door closed behind them, What's your problem? Hakan snapped, his own frustration boiling over. What's my problem? Cemre echoed, her voice trembling with emotion. You already lost a huge amount of money. Because of you, my daughters had to suffer. How hard I collected money for Baze's engagement. Hakan scoffed, his face twisted in bitterness. Then what happened? She ran off. Cemre's eyes flashed with fury. Don't you dare, Hakan. Because of you, Zeynep's semester fees were delayed, and you're arguing with me. Because rather than giving money for her fees, I was busy in paying your debts. Hakan clenched his fists, feeling cornered. I will do everything on my own. I'm not asking for help, he shot back, his voice rising. Cemre's face fell, her disappointment palpable. Okay then, go away. Play another gamble and lose everything again. The weight of her words hung in the air, cutting through Hakan's bravado. He stormed out of the room. Zeynep hurried across campus. Catching sight of the security guard near the entrance, she quickened her pace. Excuse me, when is the physics quiz competition supposed to start today? The gruff old man squinted at her in confusion. Quiz competition. There's no event like that scheduled for today. Maybe you got confused. Zeynep said, No, that can't be true. Professor Alihan assigned me to decorate the entire auditorium for it. The guard said, No, my child, you have got the wrong information. Zeynep got confused and mumbled a weak, thank you. As she walked outside towards the lawn, there at the students' fun board, there was a crowd of students gathered, clicking pictures of the board and laughing. As Zeynep reached there, they looked at her with a judgmental gaze and moved away from her. As she reached close, she saw a series of printed photographs of her and Professor Alihan stuck to the board. The images from their terrifying ordeal the night before, him catching her from a fall, shielding her during the AC malfunction. Her face burned with humiliation and shame as she finally understood the cruel, insidious prank that had been played. There's no real quiz competition, just a setup to get her alone with Professor Alihan and fabricate these deplorable scenes for the amusement of her vile classmates. Alihan broke her trust just to put out his baseless anger on her. Her steps faltered as a broken sob escaped her. She was never going to be able to show her face on campus again, not after this unforgivable humiliation. Tears blurred Zeynep's vision as she raced blindly across the courtyard, running to escape the jeers and humiliation. Just then, she collided hard with a solid figure, bouncing off them with a choked cry. It was Alihan. He said, Careful, Miss Yilmaz. She raised her gaze slowly to meet Alihan's concerned one. With a broken voice, she said, I should have been more careful, especially around you, Mr. Alihan Zakaria. Alihan confusingly asked, What do you mean? She cried out, Go look at the community board and see what your anger and revenge has led to. My whole life, my career, is on the verge of ruin because of you. Alihan was still processing her words. She continued with a fake clap. Congratulations, Professor. Your revenge is a success, Zeynep said while swiping at the tears streaming down her cheeks. Did it make you feel powerful? Punishing me for my sister's run away from the altar after the engagement. Was it my fault? Tell me how it became my fault. Alihan paled visibly, mouth working soundlessly as she hurled her accusations one after another. Finally, he said, Miss Yilmaz. Seeing him extend an entreating hand to calm her, she jerked back violently. Don't touch me, or your dear students will just catch another compromising moment to publicly humiliate me. With that, Zeynep turned and walked away while wiping her tears. Alihan stood frozen to the spot with guilt and shame as Zeynep's anguished words echoed in his mind. Alihan felt a surge of anger rise within him. His jaw ticked as he turned his furious glare towards the raucous crowd still gathered around the community board, hooting and gawking shamelessly at the provocative photos stuck there.